Well, good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for coming out. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your Saturday morning to come and listen to me speak, give you some information on our distracted driving law. Like Yash said, distracted driving is becoming a very serious challenge and problem for all highway users. And it's important that you have a clear understanding of what the law says, what you can do while you're driving your motor vehicle, and perhaps some of the consequences that will result if you don't follow the law. I think for us, all of us, to change any form of driving behavior, we have to take the ownership, first of all. So we're the ones that have to not answer our phones. We're the ones that should not be texting. And we need to have this conversation with our friends and family so that when they are phoning you or texting you and you're ignoring them, it's not because you're ignoring them, it's just because you need to keep your focus on the road. And it's really important that we all play our part in this behavior change. Otherwise, we're all going to lose loved ones at some point because someone was driving distracted. So there's many sources of distracted driving. It's just not necessarily you being on your cell phone at any particular point in time, either talking and or texting. As you can see in this little cartoon, and I apologize to the ladies in the audience, it's not meant directly to focus on you, because the men do the same thing. They try to shave, they try to read the newspaper, they're doing other things as well. The point of the cartoon is just to tell you that distracted driving is just not being on the cell phone. Here's a little bit of research that I thought you might like to see. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, which does a lot of research down in the United States, states that at any time there's 500,000 drivers on the phone. Now, this particular research is about 4 years old, so that it's probably twice as many because the use of cell phones have went up very dramatically over the last few years. Monash University does research as well. They're from Australia, and they're stating here that being on the phone is 4 times more likely that you're going to be involved in a motor vehicle collision. Virginia Tech also did some research on that, and they said that a driver texting is 23 times more likely to be involved in a motor vehicle. And AT&T did a recent survey in 2012 and found that adult drivers text 49% more than teens, which is a bit of a surprise. And 60% of those adult drivers who admitted to texting did not do so 3 years ago. So, as you can see, the phenomena of using your phone is increasing right across all generations, in all demographics, and all age groups. Here's some more interesting research. In 2014, a national public opinion survey, respondents were asked to consider a variety of unsafe driving between such things such as distracted, impaired driving, aggressive driving, not wearing a seatbelt. And the number one behavior that they all identified, of course, was texting while driving. I'll show you this video at the end. I've been having problems with this one. I don't know why, but I am. So the international research says that distracted drivers are involved in an estimate between 20 to 30,000 collisions. I'm sorry, 20 to 30% of all of the total collisions here in the province of Alberta and across the country. These numbers are a little bit low because it's very difficult for the police to collect data on when people are actually using their cell phone. And the problem with that is that if they don't actually have a witness that can say, yes, I saw the person texting or on the cell phone just prior to colliding with another motor vehicle, they can't record that information down for statistical purposes. What they will do, though, is that in a very serious or a fatality, they will do more work on it, such as get a search warrant so that they can get access to your cell phone records. Cell phone companies want to protect your rights, they want to protect their rights, and so they just do not provide that information to the police. The police actually have to go and get a search warrant to get that information. But on very serious motor vehicle collisions, they will do that. So back in 2008, the Alberta government introduced a distracted driving law. It was solely focused just on the use of cell phones. If you don't understand how our laws are made, my ministry, the Ministry of Transportation, does all traffic safety legislation. And so what happens is a bill will go through the House, it goes through 3 readings, a final reading, and then it gets proclaimed. And during that process, all bills into the House have to go through what is called the Steering Committee on Economics. It's a little bit of a misnomer because you think economics and distracted driving, what do they have in common? Well, they really don't. It's just the name of the committee that oversees and reviews and checks the bills. And when it went to that particular committee, they didn't think it was covering enough in regards to driving while distracted. So it came back to my ministry, and we were instructed to broaden the definition of distracted driving. So we spoke to 2 other ministries, one the Solicitor General and the other one Justice. And the reason is Justice is where all the lawyers sit. They're the ones that do all the prosecutions. Solicitor Generals is the one that looks after the police. So they spoke to them because they have to make sure that a law is enforceable and that there is a chance of success of a conviction in the court. So those 2 ministries were involved, as well as a variety of different stakeholders out in our communities, such as you folks. Were also consulted in regards to what they thought they might like to see in a distracted driving law. So in 2010, the government reintroduced the bill under the Traffic Safety Act. And it was passed. Now Alberta has the most comprehensive distracted driving law in the country. No other province or territory has the same amount of distracted definitions in their law as Alberta does. So Yash touched on this just prior to me getting up to speak. So here's some examples of what's currently happening across the different provinces in relation to fines and demerits. You can see British Columbia and Saskatchewan in the graduate driver's license program, that's when you get your first class 5, they can't use handheld or hands-free. They can't use hands-free or handheld cell phones at all. So what does this mean for you guys when you're driving your motor vehicle? Well, you can use using handheld cell phones for talking, texting, emailing, etc. You can't do that. You can use phones in a hand-free mode like Bluetooth, or some of the newer motor vehicles have them built right into your motor vehicle. That's perfectly legal by law. You can use a handheld two-way radio. I don't know if any of you folks are in the trucking industry at all, but if you've got a CD system or a radio system within your motor vehicles that you use to connect with your employer, that's perfectly legal. But of course, you know, search and rescue, emergency management, for example, up in Fort McMurray, they were probably using a variety of different communication devices. In those situations, it's perfectly legal. So the distracted driving law restricts drivers from using electronic devices like laptops. So you can't have your laptop on your lap while you're driving, that's illegal. You can't have it on your dashboard, that's illegal. Video games, cameras, so you can't be going down the road taking a picture of a motor vehicle collision. If you get caught, you're going to get a ticket for that. You can't program portable audio players. So for example, if you have an iPod and you've got 5,000 songs on it, and you've got it broken into different forms of music, like classical, rock, whatever, it's perfectly legal for you to start your music before you start driving and listen to it as you're driving. That's perfectly legal, not a problem. But you can't be playing with your iPod trying to change it from classical to rock to country to whatever else you want to listen to. And using earphones while listening to your music in the motor vehicle is perfectly legal. The law does not exclude that. Same thing with GPSs. If you pre-program a GPS unit, hit the button and off you go, that's perfectly legal. You can look at it while you're driving, not a problem at all. What you can't do is you can't be programming it as you're driving. That's illegal. And you can't have a handheld device or screen with, in front of the driver. So some of the old technology used to have a DVD player that you could, stick a movie in. They were rather small. They'd sit onto your console area, or that's illegal. The driver cannot have that in front of him. It's perfectly legal if you have one in the back of your motor vehicle so that the kids can watch it or other passengers can watch a movie or a show or something as you're driving, but you can't as the driver. So this law also prevents you from reading a paper, so don't be caught reading Yash's paper while you're driving, okay? Can't do that. Can't print or sketch or personal grooming. Just recently was talking to one of my law enforcement partners, and they were saying one of their guys actually caught an individual making his lunch while he was driving. So he had his bread on the dashboard, he had his condiments on the dashboard, he had his meat on the dashboard, and he was putting a sandwich together as he was driving his motor vehicle. So he got an educational reminder not to do that. Not if you're the driver. I'll give you another example. This always surprises people. Tim Hortons, the drive-thru. You're sitting there, you've already put your order in, and now you're on your phone. You're texting or you're talking, you're waiting for the cars to move ahead. Just a little bit of advice, a little bit of inside trading information here. Who usually goes to Tim Hortons? Yeah, you guys do. Yeah, I get that. We do too. But the police like to hang out there, right? So when you get up to the window and you get your double-double, you may also be getting a summons, because it's illegal for you to be on your phone in a drive lane going up to collect your food or your coffee. It's illegal. By law, that's considered a road. And so they're perfectly within their rights to issue you a summons. And a particular RCMP detachment in and around the Edmonton area were doing exactly that. They were just waiting just as you exited the driving lane, and they were issuing summonses. So when you're in Tim Hortons and you're in the driving lane, don't be on your phone, because you never know when you come up to the window, you may get that summons plus your double-double, okay? No, there's an invitation for the public to have access to that road. So the only way that it becomes private is if there's a sign that's there or a barricade saying private road. That removes that invitation for the public to come onto the property. It's the same thing, for example, in Walmart. You have this huge parking lot. If you're driving your motor vehicle in the parking lot and you're on your phone and the police see you, by law, they could issue you a summons. But if you're in one of their designated parking stalls and you're on your phone and you're parked legally, that's perfectly fine. Now, what I'm telling you here is what the law says. I'm not telling you that the police are actively out doing that, sitting in a Walmart parking lot waiting to catch you, okay? I'm just telling you that that's what the law says. So you have a clear understanding of what you can or cannot do as a driver underneath this particular legislation, okay? And I can tell you from my experience and my connections with the law enforcement community, they're not in Walmart doing that. Okay. Oh, this is some of the things though that you can do. I mean, you can have a conversation with your passenger and have a coffee, but you can't have a coffee and a burger, because who's driving the motor vehicle? Your knees and your elbows. No, that doesn't work. So you can have a snack, have a cigarette. You can have a pet in the car. I'll tell you a personal experience that I had with a pet in the car. I was a young constable. At the time, there was no distracted driving law. And I'm coming down the road, and all I could see of the driver was his eyes. And they were sort of not where you think your eyes would be. They were sort of off to the side. And then I could, as I got closer, I could see ears, and I could see a big snout. And so what this guy had was he had his German Shepherd across his lap, and he was driving, peeking around this German Shepherd. So I stopped him. I did issue him a summons. But the reason I bring this story up for no other reason is to give you a mental vision. This guy's dog was about 120 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilo. I'm old school. I'm an old guy. Now just envision you traveling 60 kilometers an hour and coming to a sudden stop because you are in a collision with another motor vehicle, a tree, a pole. What's traveling at 60 kilometers an hour at 120 pounds in your motor vehicle? The dog. So you're going to get hurt, seriously hurt. You could even die because 120 pounds coming at you at 60 kilometers an hour, you're not going to survive that, and neither is the dog. So there is a law under the Traffic Safety Act that requires you to secure your pets. Please secure your pets, or secure anything that's really heavy that you might have in your vehicle, just in case you're in a motor vehicle collision. Because if it's not secured, it's flying around your car at whatever speed you were going and at whatever weight it is, and can seriously injure you or your passengers. You can use a cell phone in a hands-free mode. We've already talked about that.
The point about the cell phones, the point about the Bluetooth also, it actually takes about 40 to 70% of your attention off the road if you're talking on Bluetooth.
You know, that's great, and I'm glad that you introduced that, because you're right. The research says that Bluetooth or hands-free mode is just as dangerous as talking on your cell phone. And that one video clip I showed you there about a husband talking to his wife has no idea what her husband is experiencing while driving a motor vehicle, right? And it's just as distracting. And the members out there are catching people not stopping for a pedestrian because they're concentrating so hard on the conversation that they're having with someone, or they're a businessman, or they're having a fight with their significant other, and they're not focused on the road at all. And you know, they're either getting involved in collisions or hitting people and killing people. So your point is bang on, and thank you for bringing that up. I mean, I try to encourage people not to use it, but that's just a personal choice of mine, right? The law says it's perfectly legal. Research says it's just as bad, and I try to change people's opinions. So thank you for bringing that up. So this little rascal on a bike, if he's on the bike like that on his phone, he's going to get an educational moment with a police officer. By law, a bike is defined as a vehicle, and so this person cannot be on his phone driving his bike. It's illegal. And we're finding a lot of people doing that, and we're finding a lot of distracted pedestrians as well. So what does this mean for drivers? Well, it applies to drivers on all highways, and highways has a very broad definition. As you can see there, I've explained it a little bit. Now there's a separation between urban and rural in so much as this. In a rural setting, if you're going down the road, let's say you're going down QE2, and a Yash who likes to phone people and get them into trouble all the time with the police is phoning you, and you stop and pull over on the shoulder of the highway to talk to Yash, and a police officer comes by, you're going to get a ticket. The shoulder is not a place that you can park your vehicle and have a conversation on the phone or text. Shoulder is designed solely for emergency parking. So your car breaks down, you're stopping to assist another motorist, you're stopping to assist someone in a motor vehicle collision. It's the only time you're supposed to stop on a shoulder. Now, if you pull off into a rest area to talk on your phone or to text, perfectly legal, not a problem. Okay? If you pull off onto an approached, which is what I'm referring to is going onto a overpass and stop and do that, that's illegal. You can't do that. It has the same definition as the highway, okay, on the shoulder. You can't do that. Now, if you pull off and go onto a private road, by definition, you'd be okay there. I don't think the police would bother you at all. So, but here in a city, in an urban center, there's that Yash again, that rascal Yash. He's phoning you again in the city, or this time he's texting you in the city, and you want to talk to him, if you pull over to the curb and it's a safe and legal place for you to park, then you're fine. You can do that, okay? But if you pull over to the curb and it's a place where you're not supposed to stop or park, then of course you're illegally parked, and therefore the law will apply to you getting a summons. Okay? Any confusion on that? Okay, good. What else it says? Drivers should only engage in restricted activities when legally parked on the highway. I just talked about that. For safety, yeah, I've already talked about that as well.
Bruce,
Yes?
sometimes you have a sign on the shoulder of the road that says no stop, and you should add on the road, those smaller signs, 6x4 or something like that. If somebody in front of an emergency, can they go over there and, that's the situation?
Oh, absolutely. Like, what you have to understand is the law says one thing. Police officers have a lot of discretion, and how they apply that law is left to them. And I would hazard a guess most police officers in that situation, if it was an emergency and you explained what the situation was, you would be fine. No problem at all. I can tell you from my experience, the number of times that happened to me and I gave someone a break is in the thousands. Like, it's just, if the reason is logical, then yeah, I always used to use my discretion. And I can pretty much tell you most police officers will do that. Will you run into one that's kind of cranky every once in a while? Sure. They're human beings, so sometimes you will. But most of the guys are really good, and the gals. Okay? Yes.
Where it says no parking, can you stop there? When the sign says no parking, can you stop?
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
If your car breaks down,